Hi, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. And so please make sure to like and subscribe to my official YouTube channel, this video as well. Share the link to my official YouTube video and videos. And go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. So usually when it comes to my official YouTube videos, I mainly only focus on the facts, which it's still facts that I'm going to focus on this particular official YouTube video of mine. As far as this lecture, however, I had listened to a little snippet regarding the Joe Rogan experience in reference to where Joe Rogan was speaking with a male about the mythology regarding the Bible. And so I'm going to go over, if you go to my website, www.susanmealing.com, you can see my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, but you can also see the books that I have authored. And so in the reference of, there are two distinctive aspects. Isn't this a symbolic irony, huh? And so if you go noticing, there is the fact-based books, and then there are the fiction books. Now, while some of the fiction books, possibly even all of them, could be considered as relatable regarding current time frames. So again, today is the 27th of April, 2022. My first series of the both fact-based books as well as fiction books, or in the regards of the Joe Rogan experience snippet in regards of the biblical mythology, there are the fiction-based books. And so I'm going to focus more along the lines of my fiction-based books series. The majority of them, though, as far as both the fiction-based and the fact-based, were published between the years of 2004 through 2016. Both at the same time, because I was capable to work on more than one thing, because possibly of the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 and the way my thoughts go, and or just because I am as I am. Now, while in regards of the other book series, more in reference to the fiction, as well as the fact-based, I did do a few more books, beginning the official publication time frame of 2020 into 2021, at the same time of working on my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, through my website, www.susanmealing.com. And so I'm gonna kind of go over some of those factors to give the references for certain metaphors. So in that Joe Rogan experience snippet about the biblical mythology, I'm going to start mainly with the Curious Children book series, which was initially published in 2014-2015 timeframe. Now, those particular two books of the two-volume set, What is a Family and What's the Difference, that is obviously facts. That's more biological. Despite it being a fiction book series, having gone into the reality that the terminology is gender roles, you can take in consideration which is considered masculine and which is considered feminine. In my case, in regards of raising my son and my daughter, I, being a single mom after a certain point, though additionally because of certain situation as to my son and my daughter, the reality is I had done the majority of work regarding raising my son and my daughter. I had to be both masculine and feminine at the exact same time. I suppose I can make a joke about myself because of my hairstyle being considered more masculine, despite the femininity that I've done what I could regarding my style. Being a biological female, I obviously carried my son and my daughter through pregnancy and into delivery to bring them to life. But there are the facts that even though it's a fiction-based book series, those who know, I had been invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. I have a large amount of scientific background because of my particular interests. I had thought about going into marine biology for one particular example, but I had also looked at the veterinary aspects and biological aspects. There are many different situations that I took into consideration for myself because I didn't want to limit myself. So fast forwarding into the fiction book series Failsafe, that particular one, well, again, being creative more so than in regards of the Curious Children book series, in Failsafe, the first book was published in 2016. The additional books in that particular book series were published mainly in the year of 2021. And so that is just being creative. That's all that book series was. While some might think about whatever references they might have regarding pop culture and or in reference to the possibilities of looking at my fact-based books, maybe there's some references that some people might wish in regards of the whatever terminology as to the psychological, subconscious, depending on your particular viewpoint regarding certain situations. However, the fact is, I knew that I was writing it in a fiction-based genre. That was it. In comparison to the Curious Children book series, where there is the scientific portions of, and then whatever gender roles, because it doesn't matter what the parental aspects are in regards of biological gender. The gender roles as to raising children have obviously gone forward where certain aspects are more accepted, because there are plenty of males who have more of a feminine aspect in concern than some females do. And that's a proven fact. There are plenty of females who have more of a masculine undertone regarding gender roles in comparison. And when you take into consideration in reference to the Curious Children book series as to the gender roles, you are capable to see in the society where many females have taken up more of a masculine gender role while remaining biological females. So what I refer to in that is actually, ironically, a meme that I found that says if females ruled the world, there'd just be a bunch of countries that weren't talking with one another. Because that is a stereotype when it comes to certain types of females. Certain females are willing to discuss things because of remaining within what is considered a feminine gender role. However, when you take in consideration certain types of females biologically, and when they have their issues, you can take in consideration the current time frame of females that, oh, I'm just not going to talk with her. I'm not going to go and look at this social media because Elon Musk or E=MC² had the nerve to go back Twitter. For a reference, okay? Congratulations again, once again, E=MC² on that. I just had to. I thought that would be funny. And so, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of individuals that have been, I can't believe that they would call him Elon Musk, out there
own money with his own business. Like, seriously, what type of person does what they want to do with their own finances? I mean, seriously?
You know, I'm sure that there's probably somebody who's complained in that capacity. Who does he think he is? How dare he? Oh, how dare he go and do what he wants to do with his own money? Who would ever think that someone who makes their own money could choose what they want to do with their money? Seriously, which realistically most likely would be a female biologically complaining in that capacity. And or a biological male that, you know, would be in a certain affiliation, which pretty much probably sounds similarly. So internally, hypothetically, there could be some males who, or let me be all like, as far as voice, who does he think he is? Going and using his money his way. What is wrong with that guy? What about all this other stuff? Because most likely these males would be speaking with females. Because, you know, let's be honest, regarding when the 2016 election occurred, I'm totally gonna vote for Hillary. So, like, how you doing? Right? I wouldn't be surprised. So, you know, who does he think he is? I mean, yeah, that's totally so, you know, what type of guy would do that? Here, let me buy you a drink. Right? Just as a hypothetical. So, but again, congratulations, E equals MC squared. Yay, freedom of speech. Yay. For all those people who are actually for constitutional rights. Yay. Because what is the freedom of constitutional rights and amendments across the board? I mean, it's literally in the Declaration of Independence, where we the people, the equal aspects. And so as time has gone on, you know, and the acknowledgement of equal across the board. So, it just is as it is. But I can just envision these people, especially the ones that are into the drama shows. You know, I mean, how much more drama could you get other than real life? Truth is always stranger than fiction. If I remember, that's a saying. So for all of those people who enjoy watching, you know, those drama series and that sort of stuff, you should be excited. You should be like, yay! If I understand that correctly, I personally am more into documentaries and fact-based stuff. However, you know, people watch what they're into watching, and so, you know, those individuals who like that drama stuff, I mean, isn't that what you asked for? By technicality? Shouldn't you be excited and all that? It would make sense if you really think about it. I suppose, which is an irony regarding my fiction book series, Failsafe, because there is that irony that I had only been creative. I can tell you, or lecture, as far as what I was actually thinking during the time frame of the first book that I was authoring. Yes, I was taking care of a multitude of situations as far as my fact-based books as well as my fiction genre books. But I also knew that. I understood that. I comprehended that. So when in regards of failsafe, for sure, it was one of those, well, I feel like doing a different type of writing. And if you actually look through, most specifically, my original FetLife account, I do distinguish those capacities of. So yes, there are notations that I've written where it's the facts. And yet at the exact same time, or within the time frame of, I have given these references where, oh, well, I guess I'll just write some fiction-ish stuff. You know, what was it, The Llama? I think that was one of my little fiction ones where it's like, the llama walks around and there's, you know, honey or something like, I can't remember the specifics, but it's one of those. And so, yeah, I can do that, you know, it's called, I'm fairly certain it's called multitasking, it's just in a different capacity. Fairly certain that's how that goes. So, in reference to failsafe, it was just, I feel like being creative, this is a literal thought, okay? So, I'm in the middle of working on all sorts of stuff. I feel like being creative. I want to write something that is different than what I have normally written. 9 times, and this is an actual internal thought process where I was looking at the map of the United States of America while I was in the process of doing other stuff, and in this process of thinking, it was, I feel like I'm gonna author a different type of book. I've worked on the fact-based stuff, and I've worked on, you know, certain metaphors. I want to do something completely different that I haven't ever done before. I want to author something that is in a completely different capacity than I normally have. What would be something different than what I have already done? And so I look around my area and I was, oh, I could write a scary book. I want to write something scary. So mind you, the television at the time had, there was the commercials between whatever news broadcast at the time, and I can't remember what the commercial was. And it was, I got it, I could write something scary. I could totally do this. And so I run upstairs, because I'm all excited. I can make a joke. I was born in the year of the dog, so I'm all like, yes, yay! I go over to where my son is, and I'm like, guess what I'm gonna do? And he goes, what? Other than tell me what you're gonna do. Yes! Mind you, the 2 dogs run up the stairs along with. And so I'm like, guess what I'm gonna do? And he goes, what? I'm gonna write a scary book. And my son looked at me and he lifted an eyebrow and he goes, so you think you can write something scary? Yes, I can. And he gives me a hug and he goes, Mom, you're my mom. What would make you think that you could actually be scary? I can totally be scary. I could totally write something scary. And he looked at me and he's like, sure, Mom. When you're done, I'll take a look at it. And I looked at him and I said, but I gave you the books that I already authored. Finding a Silver Lining and Finding the Silver Lining and the Curious Children book series, you know, volume 1 and 2. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, but Mom, you're my mom. what makes you think that you could rate something scary? I could totally rate something scary, James. And he looked at me, he's like, sure, yeah, sure, maybe. But Mom, you're you. And it's like, yeah? What does that have to do with anything? And he was just, no, it's fine, sure. And he went back to his social media, whatever, or cell phone, whatever, and I'm gonna totally rate something scary. And he looked at me, put his phone down, he's like, sure, okay, yeah, sure, right, go ahead. I will totally rate something scary. Which at that time he just, yeah, okay, Mom, sure. So, I fixed as far as dinner was concerned, and well, I'm gonna totally do it, sure, which is funny when you take in consideration, I'm totally whatever as far as E equals MC squared. Although I don't know whether or not other people call him E equals MC squared, is what it is. And I'm totally like whatever. Or in the reference of 2015, if Donald J. Trump has the nerve to actually become president of the United States of America, gonna go to Canada? Which how many actually did? I don't know. But that is what it is. I voted for him twice. Nonetheless, I totally write something scary. Totally do it. Totally. It's so scary. It's gonna be the scariest of the scariest of books. It's gonna be so scary. And my son looked at me, yeah, that doesn't sound scary, Mom. At all. The way you are trying to describe it. I can totally rate something scary. And he just looked at me, he's like, sure, no, go ahead. Do what you can, go ahead. I finished cooking dinner and stuff like that. I'm gonna totally do it. I'm gonna totally make something scary. You don't know. Make something so scary. And so he looked at me like, something about that just doesn't register as scary. You doing that kind of really doesn't come across as all that scary. So I got to work and stuff like that, and fail-safe, came out and stuff like that, and it's like, why not? So I literally just, sure, let's see, what would be scary? It would be totally scary if a female did something, so I could do that. I'm a female, so I know that there are some males that get scaredy. So that's enough of a starting point. And then, you know what? I know the book of Revelations. I can totally go into that. That would be awesome because I know the book of Revelations. I know the Bible. I went through confirmation class, and my confirmation class at Old Tennant Presbyterian Church, we had a year-long course. I can totally do that. That'll be, yes, the whole kit and caboodle of like, yes, and then, out from the heavens, this, that, and the other, and well, let me do something scary as far, people as far as these. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And so it literally was just I'm gonna come up with something all creative and stuff. That was literally my entire thought process. Yeah, that comes. Wait, no, that might be too scary because my son and my daughter are in high school, so I don't wanna be too scary. So I gotta tone that one down. So let me rewrite that part. That was pretty much my entire thought process. That I'm gonna write something scary and I'm being creative the whole time. There wasn't any other real thought process as far as that was concerned. I'm gonna be scary. I'm gonna write something scary and rawr the whole time. So the whole time I'm typing, it's gonna be so scary. Rawr! This could be scary. Which, thinking back to that point in time now, in 2022, to back in the year of 2015, yeah, I could see how that doesn't come across that scary. But in my thoughts, I was, this is so rare. This is so scary. I'm gonna totally write something so scary. Literally, as far as failsafe is concerned, I'm gonna run. That's so scary. I can make fun of myself. It's an easy process to do that. So I'm gonna, here's some scary stuff here and some scary stuff there. It might not be that scary, I don't know. What I do know is, when I finished and I published through Amazon and stuff like that, get the book in the mail and I'm just like, yay! Internal thoughts, yay, I did it, I wrote a scary book, yay, I did it, yay! And so my son came home from school and I'm like, how was your day at school? And talked with him about stuff, got snacks and stuff like that ready in the kitchen and talked and stuff like that. And when he finished talking about the day, guess what I did? And he goes, I don't know. What did you do? You making fun of me? And he's like, technically. Guess what I did? And he goes, what did you do? I totally wrote a scary book. And he was like, oh, you actually went through with that. Oh, okay. You want to see it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so, got the book. I was like, here you go, here's missing. And he looks at it, he looks at the cover and he's like, Mom, that's not really scary. Just on the, don't judge a book by its cover. And he looks at me and goes, yeah, but Mom, like, it's not a scary, it doesn't give the slightest inclination of anything being scary. But it can, it's so far. Yeah, okay. I'm telling you, it's so scary. So I had told him there was a point where I had one page, literally, compared to the amount that I had written. And that particular mail, as far as Stony LaRue concert situation, as far as Cowboys Dance Hall in 2013, he had read an entire page, meaning one page. looked at me and he was like, why would you ever write something so atrociously scary? I'm on the correct path also. Scary book, roar! So, my son, he's looking at the book and he's like, sure. And I told him, I said, I wanted these books regarding my fiction book series, I wanted them to be where you couldn't put the book down. I didn't want the book, whichever one I authored, to ever be something that you could just, I'll read more later. I wanted it to be whichever book series where you read it and it's like, I want, and like back in the day, for those who know what I'm talking about, certain books you just eat, whatever food, and it was literally a page turner where you just constantly could not put it down, and then when you finished the last page, you're like, that was my thing as far as the different. I wanted where whatever I authored, especially when it comes to the fiction aspects, I wanted whatever individual reading to be capable to just not be capable to put the book down. Not that they couldn't, but I'll talk with you later. I need to read this and stuff like that, and just what is this and how, and just all of that, because that's what creativity, I thought, is. And so, when you read the book, it's one of those, and then what happens? And then, and in my thoughts, when authoring my fiction book series most specifically, I wanted it where no matter, this piece of paper turn, I gotta find out what happened next, that sort of thing, like, that was my thing. It was like, I thought that's the way we author, where you have that just full-fledged engagement when you're reading the pages. It just, what is this? So in regards to fail-safe, scary, scary, scary. In my thoughts for this clarification. So I give the book to my son and he's like, yeah, sure. I'll go read that later. Bye. You gotta read that. Sure, it's a scary book with a picture of stars, with a, little background, a picture. Yeah, it's supposed to be scary. And he's like, I don't know how this could be scary. Because if you read the book, it will make sense why it's a scary picture. Space? No. Which is an irony. Because I didn't know about SpaceX at the time. I knew about NASA. I'll be honest on that. I had no idea about SpaceX or Blue Origin or anything like that at those times. So it's like, yeah, this is going to be totally wrong. That's scary wrong. So a few days later, I asked my son when he gets home from school, what did you think? Well, I'm not going to say, this is his words, I'm not going to say that you wrote a scary book. Oh. But what I am going to say is that I'm going to look at law enforcement. Oh, okay. Made no sense whatsoever. So I go and I start thinking, it's like, did I not write a scary book? Like, that's fine. I'm glad he's okay with law enforcement. Did I not? Like, is it a scary book? Is it scary? So in my own thoughts, because, self-doubt and stuff like that, it's like, did I write a scary book? Was it scary? Was it raw? And like, did I roar as much as I thought I roared? These are my thoughts, mind you. So, was it a roar? Or was it a meow? Sort of thing. This is my thoughts, mind you. So it's like, was it roar as I thought? Or was it just That's literally what I'm thinking. And so for weeks, each day, just, was it raw? Was it? This is another reason why I kind of took a break from authoring for a bit, because it's like, did I roar enough? I was writing a scary, and I did scary enough? Like, did I muffle it too much? Like, was it scary, or was it like so I could be taking care of whatever I'm taking care of, and yet at the same time, in my thoughts, was it scary? Did I write something scary or not? I don't know. Was it just like, raw? Is that thought while I was typing? Or was it just like afterwards, meh, sort of thing, like, because nobody said anything. So in my thoughts, it's one of those, I don't know if I did anything, like, was it good? I don't know, like, was it, I don't know. Was it good enough? Was it, rawr? In my thoughts, rawr? Was it rawr? Or was it me? So, in my thoughts, I'm having this, was it, like, what did I think? Was it just, and not considering anything else as far as any of the, because of failsafe being a complete different genre than I have ever authored. So, granted, I didn't really author anything in reference more specifically either regarding paroxysm of the lotus, but in reference to failsafe most specifically, that was out of creativity and only creativity. That wasn't anything beyond that. So for those who compose music, for those who, create different aspects where you literally, put a much effort into it, for essentially from 2016 through even now to 2022, it's one of those, did I do anything that was really worthwhile? And for those who have actually known me, and when I say actually known me, there's a certain level where you would actually know me. It's obviously in an in-person, face-to-face, in-person sort of way, but it's a certain level. So it doesn't necessarily mean anybody that I've ever dated. It doesn't even necessarily mean in regards of acquaintance aspect. There are very few people that I would have this, and it is an in-person, face-to-face thing, so there are very few people, and this is from the 1980s through to the 2020s, that less than 5 people that I could think of that would actually know that the amount of, as far as knowing me in person, face-to-face in person, knowing how my thoughts are because of discussions. And so that sort of constant self-evaluation from the time frame of 2016 when I first published it, and then, as far as It wasn't anything that I had any real experience. Yeah, okay, I read the Bible. But the aspects of it just, it's a personal, there are those who, when you create something or you make something, you go through, I would guess, depending who you are, is this something that is considered exactly what the whatever intention is? So in regards to failsafe, it's one of those, is it especially because it's stepping so far outside of my comfort zone as far as writing. It's beyond out of what my normalcy is for anything at all. There is nothing that I have written in any capacity that is along those lines. Yes, I've authored some fiction sort of stuff, but going into a complete different genre. And then when you take in consideration, I was not allowed to watch movies that were above a G-rated movie. So then there's that as far as my thought process where it's like, did I even, is it considered what would be G-rated? In comparison, is it a G-rated roar? And then at that point, it's not a roar, for lack of better words, but this is thought processes. It's just one of those. And then because I can't think of any reference points, because I wasn't allowed to watch certain movies as a child or television shows or anything like that. So in my thoughts, it's one of those, did I even, what? If I could give a physical representation of my thoughts at the time, it's like, was it scary? And because I didn't know anybody, other than my son, realistically, to ask, but I'm not going to say it's scary. What I am going to say is I'm going to go look in law enforcement. Okay, handsome, but that's not answering my question. I need a yes or no answer. Is it a scary book or is it just, what is it good enough or is it bad? Or is it in comparison? So, very well. So, I figured there's only a certain level of ways to judge my work. And that's, okay, well, if it's good enough, I guess, I'll find out, I don't know. I don't know how that is, I don't know what, And so, I really had nothing to go off of because there's no real background that I have that would give that capability. If you really take in consideration. So I didn't get those influences as far as different pop culture references. So I don't have that. I don't know what movies. I know that there are movies. I know that there are television shows. I know this, and I knew this back then. But I didn't watch any of that to get any inspiration. It was just, I'm going to be creative. I'm going to do it my way, sort of thing. And, somebody, maybe, maybe. I don't know if it's scary or not. Which, those who would know me in person, face to face in person, in an overall generalized way, they would be capable to guess some of that, or, she wouldn't she wouldn't know unless you literally told her that if it was scary, at all. Whereas others, I would guess, would be like, well, she knows in comparison to, no, I don't, no. Because in my thoughts, the saying is we are our own worst critics. So from 2016 all the way to 2022, it's one of those, well, is it, because, I wrote it to be like, and isn't it sort of like, what would that be? I don't know. So, for the time frame, it was, well, I'll just go do whatever I go do and take care of what I go take care of, and it is what it is. I'll take a break from authoring. I'll focus more on my Medal of Honor art project stuff and do this and do that, and then Iowa 2018. As far as my Medal of Honor art project trip there, and then, a few other situations to where, okay, well, I'll do these updates and stuff like that regarding my journal blog, the Ornery PSA on my website, www.susanmealing.com. And I'll go take care of this, and I'll go take care of that, and I'll do all this other stuff because, I don't know, I gotta go take care of stuff. I should probably take care of this and take care of that, and here's whatever situation here, and here's whatever situation there. So, in a nutshell, that's that. Because it's just the way it is. I'm not the type, especially when you take in consideration, which you can actually see from 2016 through essentially 2018, or realistically 2021, there's no point in time of new books between 2016 to 2020 officially. Yeah, share some journal blog stuff on my website, www.susanmealing.com, which is the Ornery PSA. But there's no other books at that time because of my own, what is it considered good enough? I didn't really take in consideration any other capacity up, because what would that be? Those references. So, okay, update time as far as the Ornery PSA on my website, www.susanmealing.com, and regards of, from 2019 onward. And kind of just took that as far as taking care of stuff. Doing what I can, where I can, and not really, not paying attention, but not really going into certain thought processes. So then, in regards to the other fiction book series, the Paroxysm of the Lotus. And so there's volume 1, 2, and 3 in regards of both the years of 2014 through 2016 and publishing those as far as after offering. And then, in 2021, publishing some more as far as that particular book series. And in that particular reference, again, it's a fiction book series. I don't personally have those references regarding experiences. Despite having been in the lifestyle in the state of Texas officially as a biological adult from 2004 into 2005, and then from 2009 through 2012, well, anybody was in the lifestyle in the state of Texas that were at the events that I was at, there's nothing that is anything remotely close, that there's any experience that I had been a part of, or even at an event, for those clarifications. So there's not one event at all whatsoever that would ever be in those particular references at all. So, and even before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 during racing training, no specific experiences, whether in reference most specifically to book 1 or book 3 of the Paroxysm of the Lotus. Obviously, in regards of the rest of the book series, I don't have that personal experience. However, there is Paroxysm of the Lotus book series, book 2, Portraits of Partnerships. So if individuals in the state of Texas thought, because, you know, it's known as the Lone Star State, that they were the only ones who could have ever been in that capacity, well, no, not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. Especially when you take in consideration where I was born and raised, and the years of. So when you take in consideration that I was born and raised in New Jersey, that's a fact. In the 1980s, I was born in the state of New Jersey. In the 1980s and 1990s, I grew up going around the different areas of New Jersey, of New York City, the 5 boroughs, of New York State, of Pittsburgh, of Philadelphia, of Pennsylvania. I grew up going around those areas from the 1980s all the way to 1998. So, as far as portraits of partnerships, there is no actual reference to that realistically in the state of Texas at all, whatsoever. In that particular thought process regarding portraits of partnerships, I wanted the reader, whoever the individual was, if they had the knowledge that I was born and raised in New Jersey and grew up going into these areas, well, I saw it as a multifaceted way, where maybe, especially because of when I was in 2nd grade, there were those who might remember certain things, those clarifications in regards of 2001 and 1993, for those who would know, especially regarding the areas of, not in a negative way, in a thought-provoking way. And while the names, again, gender roles, depending on whatever community area, there's not necessarily this specific setup, because when you take in consideration the 1980s and 1990s and where I grew up walking around, my biological father had been certified by the School of Baldwin. And he was capable to certify gemstones. He was capable to work on Bulova watches, Rolex watches, Seiko watches. And I'm not talking about $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 Seiko watches, although he could. But that's the average scuba diver watch price. I'm not talking about those. My biological father could work on watches that had a comma in the price. That's what my biological father worked on. That was his that was his larger amount of finances, so, as far as his work. So he would fix grandfather and grandmother clocks that were hundreds of years old because of his specialty. He would be capable to reset stones from antique rings. This isn't, I don't know what people thought as far as his particular work, but his work in the 1980s and 1990s was not the same as what some people think. So with his work, he was called in. So let's say, so for those who understand cuckoo clocks and the amount of details in those particular references, he could not only fix the internal mechanisms, he could also refinish some of the detail work because of the carpentry involved. It wasn't something as simple as what some people think. So those who know about Rolex watches, more in that particular reference, he would be called in for some of the older watches. His particular work, yeah, sure, he could take care of the modern stuff, but his certification was not just for the stuff that came out in the 1980s and 1990s. He was certified to be capable to work on watches and clocks that were from the early 1900s, even the 1800s and 1700s. So he was capable to take care of antiques. It wasn't like it was just what some people might think. So he additionally, because he could actually make molds to make jewelry, he made my biological mother and biological father's wedding ring set. So their wedding ring set, he made that mold. He picked out the stones himself. He did all that. In comparison to going to a store, he was capable to take pieces that he himself had made. So for those who understand Etsy, just more in person, face-to-face in person. So he would take what he made or whatever it was if somebody wanted a specialty piece. It wasn't something that, and so I don't know what people in the state of Texas thought, but there are those who would be capable to understand. So yes, he did go to the business fronts. He went to the equivalent of Bailey, Banks and Biddle. He went to the equivalent of Tiffany's. He went to the equivalent and to the actual stores regarding Rolex and Seiko, for some examples. But he also was called in regarding certain individuals in these 5 boroughs. He was called in reference to some of these individuals out in the outskirts of Philadelphia, the outskirts of Pittsburgh, for those who understand that. He would be called into business offices to pick up and drop off orders because of something that occurred. So individuals who would have those extremely expensive, something from not just with sentimental value, but also however many years old, particular watches that require an expert's viewpoint. That's what his work was. And so, in reference to portraits of partnerships, well, people who actually knew me in person, face-to-face in person, from the Northeast tri-state area, maybe they didn't remember me because I grew up But if some of them remembered me asking questions as to whatever capacity up, and that difference regarding that, as far as the individuals in the state of Texas who hypothetically thought that had to do with them, it had absolutely nothing to do with you. Had absolutely nothing to do with people in the lifestyle I once knew in the state of Texas from 2004, 2005, and 2009 through 2012. Not one of you. Well, some might have thought that. Possibly. No. No, no, no. Those who would know the Northeast area, though, they might know some individuals. They might recognize some situations, in most specific to Volume 2 of the Paroxysm of the Lotus. And so, while in other references of that particular book series, female empowerment, and those references giving different viewpoints of in other book series portions, the situations of Volume 2, well, that was, I'll admit, that one I wanted to take in a different direction. I didn't want any of my books per book series to be exactly the same as the prior. I wanted to make sure that similarly, you just couldn't put that book down. You had to read and actually go through that. So, Paroxysm of the Lotus book series, Volume 2, Portraits of Partnerships, that would be in reference to those people I once knew, wherever, in person, face-to-face in person. That I know how people are from New Jersey. No, you don't. Here you go. So whether in reference of Harlem, or Brooklyn, or the Bronx, or Queens, or Manhattan, or Long Island, or Staten Island, or New York State, Pittsburgh, Lancaster, Philadelphia, suburbs of in Pennsylvania, different areas in New Jersey. You know, where in the 1980s and 1990s it was more accepted. It wasn't looked down upon. It wasn't necessarily elevated, but it wasn't looked down upon. It was more accepted because before the 1980s is the 1970s, obviously. So where people I once knew in the state of Texas, whichever areas, whichever metroplex you may have thought was so progressive, no. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I grew up going around quite a few areas. And so while some people may have thought that whatever their personal opinion is of themselves during that time frame, hypothetically, if that were to be the case, how inaccurate that would be in every possibility, especially regarding Volume 2, because there is nobody that I would ever consider in the capacities of individuals I personally knew that could ever compare to those who I grew up around. To me, and I had said this at different events, well, I knew someone who was like you at one point in time. It's almost like you're a carbon copy. In some ways, not to the level of who I once knew. But, you know, you remind me of some of them. in comparison. So, no matter, and I could be inaccurate. Maybe there were people in the state of Texas who didn't know that I had authored that. Maybe they did. But if they did, and they thought of themselves more highly as to ever, in specific especially, to volume 2 of the Paroxysm of the Lotus, let me be clear. No. I was born and raised in New Jersey. And in the 1980s and 1990s, I knew people. And while my biological mother and biological sister wouldn't have known them at all because of the way that they had been, that Texans would be capable to notice, my biological father had did a lot of work for a lot of different people all throughout those areas. And so if Mike had told people, no, that's actually not you, Texas, that's actually this guy, that she was there, this guy, that she was there, this family, this group, this people, no, you should have listened. Because he probably, if he read that, it would have been, no, Texas, no. You're not anything new. Not compared to where she was born and raised. Not at all. Not in the 1980s and 1990s. Nowhere remotely close. You haven't even progressed to the point of being capable to discuss that in that capacity of the education system was very different. The open-mindedness, extremely different. Maybe there's some pop culture references that some people can take in consideration of the New York City areas. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New Jersey, as far as. So, while if in the capacity where certain individuals would take that Lone Star State viewpoint in those references, thinking that they're so progressive, no, not at all. No, not in the slightest. Because those who may have been in the tri-state area, whether for college, mainly I would guesstimate college, as well as employment, those individuals regarding the tri-state area, they would have more of a knowledge base to that tri-state area, especially in the 1980s and 1990s. You can even see it if you take in consideration my modeling, specifically in reference to my gowns. In regards of my modeling, there might be some people who could recognize certain individuals from that time frame. You can take in consideration my dresses as far as my modeling, and you can piece that together as far as that's concerned. And yes, you can take in consideration certain corsetry modeling in those particulars, possibly some of the business suit aspects. Regarding people I knew in person, face-to-face in person, in more so the mid to late 1980s and into the 1990s up until 1998. Those are people that some sort of reference thereof. And remember, I didn't really get into fashion magazines. I wasn't allowed to read G-rated television shows. G-rated in comparison. So what events would have certain similarities in some ways to individuals that maybe they might remember me, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. I was younger, obviously, as a child and an early teenager. And obviously I didn't have tattoos because I was a teenager or a child. My hair obviously wasn't this color or style. So, sure, there could be some variations. You could take a look at some of my modeling regarding just regular jeans and t-shirt or pajama type stuff. Comparison. So that's who that particular book volume of the Paroxysm of the Lotus book series, that's more of a respectful aspect as to different viewpoints regarding people I once knew in person, face to face, in person, from my childhood. Not at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, not at Asher Holmes Elementary School necessarily, not in any location where it would be like a yearbook sort of situation. So it would be in areas where there wouldn't have that background of a book. So in my updates on my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, my website, www.susanmealing.com, there are those differences that I explained during the initial updates. So if in the hypotheticals regarding Washington State at that time and individuals hypothetically that I once knew in person, face-to-face in person, in those hypothetical references to something such as the fact-based book, the modern day book, no, I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I don't do that. So if some people thought that whatever they thought, no. I was born and raised in New Jersey, and in the 1980s and 1990s, there were certain, or most locations that were far more advanced and progressive in discussion. It's just the facts. And so I don't know if that was a situation where some people thought that in Austin or in DFW or even in the San Antonio supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle scenes that thought that much more highly of themselves. No. Let me be clear. You cannot replace the people I once knew. You can mirror some of them. You can have certain backgrounds that might be alike or akin to, but you can't replace those people to me. Ever. And sure, I don't deny, with the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and I don't deny the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain that took 8.5 years to dissipate out of the MRI and CAT scan views. I don't deny that. I haven't. I haven't denied that I have memory deficits and cognitive disorders. I haven't ever denied that I deal with headaches and migraines. But I haven't denied that. I can't say for other people as to what they may have wanted to deny to themselves in those references of the reality of who I actually knew. And so yes, there are the issues in regards of having remembered some people's faces in comparison to only some people's names. I haven't denied that. I've told the truth. So in regards of if people asked my biological mother about that, well, she wouldn't know most likely. She hardly ever walked on the street. The only time she would ever walk on the street in New York City is if Mike was with her. Same thing with Patricia. They didn't ever walk anywhere in comparison to Mike and I. So sometimes when Mike would go take care of certain things, I'd be hanging out with whoever I was hanging out with in comparison. So then there's the rest of the paroxysm of the Lotus Book Series 1, 3, and then the rest, or tree, however you want to put it. Nonetheless, that's just out of pure creativity. That's not out of anything that I personally have had at all. So while some people might, whatever their opinions, that's their opinion. Just being creative. Because similar to Failsafe, I didn't ever actually author anything in that way. So, okay, let me be creative. In a different capacity. Let me, in regards of by the type of, some of the other books, it's, well, let me see in my own personal way what type of creativity I could actually bring forward. Because I don't want to, similar to my modeling, similar to my life experiences, I don't want to limit myself. When I was growing up, we had this term in school to be a well-rounded individual. We were encouraged by the school to be a well-rounded individual. What your definition of well-rounded is depends on who you are. And so and I remember the first time I heard this was in first grade. Be a well-rounded individual. And I seriously contemplated, what would it be to be a well-rounded individual? What could I do with my life where I would be a well-rounded individual? What could I ever do to be more than one-sided, more than two-sided? What could I be? What could I do with my life where I would actually be capable to be more than just one or two aspects? And so, in those references, well, yes, I have dealt with the after effects of my pedantry from home studying in 2000. I didn't want to forget that. And so I worked diligently to make something of myself, despite what others had opinions of. And so, and I'm not going to deny, especially when you take in consideration 2001, I already was working to make attempts to remember. When that occurred, and from essentially the middle of September through the end of that year, the amount of work that I undertook to make attempts despite the amount of situations. I didn't take that lightheartedly. I saw how much it was needed, not just for my own self at that point. So by the time of beginning 2002, I had been working to make attempts to remember who I could. And so, sure, while some people in the state of Texas and the different communities, most specifically the supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle communities in the different areas, may have thought whatever they may have thought. There's no events that I've ever been to that would ever be along those lines. There's not any situations that would ever amount to those aspects of, because that just hasn't occurred. Though, if in reference to volume 2, individuals were capable to actually walk themselves through and take into consideration a serious evaluation of oneself, well, that is what books are for. It's important to take that to thought as to what realistically would be in such considerations. And so, while some people, whatever their opinions were, or are, or were, whatever, that's that. It's those. That's not my responsibility, realistically, especially to explain. I already had, by that point in time, there's finding A and finding B silver lining. There's already that explanation before ever, as far as this official YouTube video lecture. Do make sure to like and subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Go to my website, www.susanmuling.com. And if you choose to leave comments, please do so with etiquette and respect in regards to my official YouTube videos. And share the link. And so, while it is what it is, as to hypotheticals, I am very precautious. So, in that reference, if individuals thought, hypothetically, that they were a reference, well, I can make a joke, similar to the back of my old Texas driver's license. No, there's not one reference to anybody I knew in the state of Texas regarding paroxysm of the lotus, volume 2. Not one. Not when I offered. Not at all. Not one. If you were capable to relate, well, great. Awesome. But no, there's not one reference in regards to that state. Well, I might have been considered a nuance or new to some individuals in the state of Texas. Well, that's me. I suppose that would be considered as. So, in regards of volume 1 and volume 2 and volume 3 of the paroxysm of the lotus, into other aspects of the rest of that book series, well, obviously, that has not occurred. There hasn't been any point in time that I personally have ever had those references regarding situations of. It's pure creativity. So, while yes, in regards of volume 1, I am capable, that doesn't mean that's ever occurred. There's not a situation where I've had a relationship in that capacity. Same thing in reference of volume 3, or all the way through to 10 so far. It's just being creative. That's all. Same thing as failsafe. Book 1 through book 10. Just being creative. That's all. I figured in regards of from 2021, I believe, is the time frame I authored some more and published through Amazon regarding that. Let's go be creative some more. That's fine. I have a lot of stuff that I need to take care of as best as I can. So I do appreciate the Amazon company being capable to do my publishing through. Mr. Jeff Bezos, I was listening to an interview that he did in the year of 2018, ironically in Washington, D.C. And one of my favorite particular comments from this hour and a half, 2 hour long interview is he discusses where he was being interviewed in the 1990s about, do you even know what a profit is? How do you spell profit? And I had to laugh because Mr. Jeff Bezos had said P-R-O-P-H-E-T. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you take in consideration the capabilities of being able and capable to author books and put them online that way and do the self-publishing. Absolutely. Of course, all the other stuff too in regards of Amazon. Of course. But definitely. You have to be truthful and give credit where credit is due. And obviously, that's fairly accurate in those time frames. So yeah. Which the irony of ironies, a few days ago I had completed a few official YouTube videos and have published them through the YouTube official channel of mine, which I didn't know he went to Princeton, which is funny. Because then the irony of the aspects between Rutgers and Princeton, I'm sure, made me capable to clarify and verify some of those situations as to an irony. And then I learned apparently E equals MC squared went out to Penn State, which is funny. Because in both references, I've been to the... I'm just going to say I had been to some of the campuses. and again, my biological father had certified by the School of Bullafon, which would be hilarious in regards of because, there's the dean and the board and stuff like that as far as different watch aspect. And yeah, he also did gardening and those references of changing out the plants and stuff like that. That's ironically when some of them had put in daylilies and switched things out and irises. Well, why waste those plants? So, house in New Jersey and the garden and stuff like that. And I had been heavily involved with that when it came to around the lily of the valley, as far as that was concerned, along with other plants such as, so it was lily of the valley, then it switched out to tulips, and then it switched out to think it went into irises around there, maybe half irises, half daylilies. Along the side of the house was daylilies. And so, where the air conditioner would have been. And so, yeah. So, yeah, there's plenty of times that there was, I had been on those campuses, and, well, I already explained the differences between Rutgers and Princeton. And depending on a few other factors, then there's those watches and jewelry pieces and those ironies of irony. That would be just so funny. I don't know. It would be funny. I don't know. But anyway, so I do appreciate the capacities of, because yeah, in that interview, that's prophetic, obviously. It would be irony though. So anyway, I just figured I'd do that after having heard the little snippet from the Joe Rogan Experience YouTube channel where he was speaking with a guy about the mythos of biblical context. So, because myths have to do with fiction, realistically, or the fictional way of bringing forward different situations and events and kind of that particular wording. You know, I don't know if in reference to whether you take in consideration all of my fact books being the possibility of the modernized in some way. I guess it could be considered as, so if you take all of my nonfiction, fact-based books, and you put them in, well, publication order, I guess that could be considered as toric to a degree. In a metaphor-ish, I don't want to be too far-reaching on that. But then, if you take in reference of the Curious Children book series, and then Failsafe, and the Paroxysm of the Lotus book series, whichever order of, I mean, I guess it depends. There, in some ways, you could, I guess, have the New Testament, because the New Testament is a lot of parables, especially if you've studied the New Testament, and obviously there's more books in the New Testament compared to the Old Testament. So it would be kind of irony in that, in the comparable aspects. You kind of could take that in that metaphor. So, I mean, especially with, what is it, it's 40, 50, or 60 books in the Old Testament regarding the Torah, or the Old Testament. So, the finding a silver lining, finding the silver lining, the adventures of Susan E. Lang's Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, and then the modern day book. I don't know how many pages that adds up to. But that is the reference of. So then if you take in consideration the Curious Children book series, Volume 1, Curious Children book series, Volume 2, I mean, I guess you could do in a different order, sequentially. Paroxysm of the Lotus, Volume 2, and then Failsafe, Volume 1. Then I guess you could technically intermingle the Failsafe book series with the Paroxysm of the Lotus book series, depending on how the rest of the volumes, I guess, maybe. But the irony of ironies, because of how many books, in the difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament. So the Old Testament has a lower number of books by number, and then the New Testament has a larger number of books, and then the irony of the Song of Songs and the poem or psalms. If I remember correctly, the Song of Songs or Song of Solomon chapter or book as far as the New Testament and then the book of Psalms. If I remember correctly, those are the two longest books in the New Testament, which would be ironic when you think about certain things. Thanks, Joe Rogan. And then the guy that you were speaking with about the references, I can't remember his name, I'll have to... Yeah, so that would be an irony when thinking about that now. You know, but yeah, during the time frames of it was literally, I'm just going to be creative. I just want to do something different. I'm going to be creative. I'll just do this. Why not? So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Please do leave a comment, hopefully in a etiquette and respectful manner regarding my official YouTube video. Share the link